what is the best system to use and why? Like, you're coming into FPV, should I go digital? Should I go analog? And what are the pros and cons about that? Because you see it on all my videos. Like, we've got HDzero, we've got Walksnail, we've got DJI, and we've got analog. Now, as of 2024, watching this video, I believe if I was coming into the hobby and I was strictly going to, and I was only doing whoop racing, I feel like analog is the choice that I would be going to do. However, for every other type of flying, unless you're that very niche Venn diagrammed sort of pilot, I think digital kind of nowadays is where most of the hobby is heading. You're going to be able to continue to use it in the future. It is coming down in price, but that means one of the problems with digital, you have to lock into an ecosystem. Once you are into an ecosystem, it is very hard to change, which is very different to, say, the old analog days where it didn't matter what VTX you got, it worked with different goggles. Like, it was like basically using really old tech that it was like an old TV transmission and things like that. What we've got here, I've got my HDzero goggles. Now look, they are the VRX version, so this is my experience with HDzero. I have not tried the HDzero goggles. I would love to. I would love to be able to have more information about what those are like. We've got DJI and we've got Walksnail. I'm going to talk about some of the pros and cons because they're all going to lock you into their ecosystem. One of the big pros of HDzero is that it uses some receivers that can also pick up analog video as well. So if you were interested in getting those and still using the new digital system of theirs and cruising around picking up some analog, this is a great option. However, the big one, they cost a ton of money. So HDzero users, I think, are mainly focused at people who want to go to racing. They want to just be able to slot into that racing field. They're not going to stomp on anybody or anything like that, and it's going to work. It's going to be able to tune into their quad. They're going to get some decent reception. They're going to have low latency. They're going to be able to rip around with a pair of these. The problem with HDzero in mine is, for what I have, is it's expensive. So there's two major problems I believe in HDzero. Number one, it's expensive. I believe they have the most expensive goggles out of the three digital options when you look at the top end choices. And number two, it is still better than analog, but you are paying a lot. Not spicy analog, like I know some people have referred to that in the past, but the video from HDzero, it is nowhere near as good in my opinion as Cadex, or stepping it up even more to DJI. So in those systems, this one I believe has the worst picture quality. So if you're just an everyday pilot who cruises around and you care about image and you're not going to be going to the races, it makes no sense in my opinion to buy HDzero. That being said, I do like them. I like what they're doing. I like how they've got a strong foothold in racing and they know what they want to be. Like, there can be no one goggle that rules everything. They're just expensive. So anyway, that's my thoughts on HDzero, and it is basically the drastic opposite. On the other end of the spectrum, we have Walksnail. So I'm going to talk about these right here. I've got these Walksnail goggles. So these are the Cadex X goggles, and these are at a totally different part. Like, for me, these are the goggles I fly all the time. And if we talk about, like, one of the big reasons for me is because their air unit is so much smaller to fit into craft. Like, I've got access to everything. I've got DJI. I've got, I could fly any craft that I want with any system. The reason why I like these, or I guess the Cadex system, is because of those small 1S air units. They are like HDzero. You can put them in some very small craft, except the image quality of these is far, far superior, in my opinion, to something like HDzero. And the beauty is, as well, it's a beautiful image, but it also now, it's coming in at a much, much cheaper cost to get people into the hobby. So if you have ever wanted to jump in and try digital, I would say this is the choice that I would choose. Again, you're going to be locked into a system though. So then you've got to be happy with, am I going to the races? Do I want to spend tons of money in the future and like converting something over? And the air units, these two, are cheaper than the DJI ones. So DJI ones, which is what we're going to talk about in just a little bit, they're more expensive. They offer some great features, but they also limit a lot of things that you can do. Omega 90 I can't deal with DJI. I'm hoping Walksnail steps up, and someone's saying I think they did. I'm feeling the same about DJI Walksnail in my next ecosystem. And Walksnail is really close to DJI. I was not happy with their goggles though. Seem to have lots of issues. Don't know if that's valid or if they solved all of them. And Kiz is saying, I got told from someone that Walksnail friendly races are popping up. It's just a big headache with the VRX. Yeah, so that's what we can talk about as well. When it comes to DJI, here's the quick and fast options of DJI. Amazing picture. I mean, that's some positives. Like a well-refined product. They've been around for a long time. They put out something that it works. It's not experimental. It doesn't have many bugs and things like that. However, I feel like they are the least open in wanting to work with FPV in the community and the open source nature of us. The big ones for me though, they're ridiculously expensive. Their air units, and this is a big reason why I don't fly them, their air units are significantly bigger. So no more indoor flying without really making your craft suffer. You've really got to, they're really suited to like that longer range or like bigger craft, like a 5-inch and up. Trying to put DJI on a small craft, it just sort of, you've got much better options going Walksnail or something like that there. And those air units are expensive. They do not play nicely with at any system. So if I'm flying around with Walksnail, it's not perfect, but I have some options to be able to fly with other pilots. Like I can change the channels and the frequencies and the output powers and those sorts of things. When I try to do that with DJI, it's not nice. Like it's like, man, I'm going to use whatever frequency. Don't tell me what to do. I'm going to cruise around so I can get a great image back to the pilot, but it's not going to worry about what other pilots are seeing or anything like that. It's going to stomp over them. It's going to do its own power levels. You don't have as many options when you're cruising around with DJI. So for me, if you're jumping in, DJI's got great picture, but they're expensive and they don't fit everything and they don't play nicely with other systems. HDzero has the worst picture of the digital options. It's expensive, but it is fantastic for races and like also picking up some analog, and it's got low latency. So if you're purely a racing person, that's where you should go. And CADX is like in between. I still think it's got an awesome picture. It is not, I would say it's a 9 out of 10 when, or maybe like an 8.5 when DJI is a 10 out of 10. But CADX, it's cheap. The air units are small. The air units are cheaper, and it does have some way to sort of try to fit in with some other pilots out there and some other ecosystems if they're using a different system like HDzero or analog and those sorts of things. So for me, I really like them. The down parts about these is they always feel like a unrefined product, like they've just let it cook, let it bake a little bit more, and it would be perfect, which I think is probably the biggest limitation of CADX is like, I like these goggles, love them. I use them. They're never coming out of my flight pack because like I'm never leaving home without them. They're like just a great pair of goggles that works if you want to get into digital and they're cheap. However, I just wish the company themselves would take a little bit more notice of what we're saying rather than trying to rush out and do these different features. Just fix those things that we need to in terms of the software. Kids are saying, what I love about HDzero Walksnail is that if you one day decide I want to start racing, I'm getting bored of freestyle, you have that supported option. I wish my Walksnail goggles had an analog option. You can put, here's the big thing, like you can run some analog in here. However, have you ever thought of this? You're going to buy HDzero because you want to do analog as well. Basically, by the time you buy a pair of Sky Zones and a pair of these digital goggles, you've got both those options. Like you can just take 2 goggles. So I don't know.